This month is of Teachers' Day as we celebrate on every 5th September. So, I would take this opportunity to introduce you all Savitri Bai Phule through three books that I am going to review today. The Rebel Flame, First Indian Women Teacher Savitri Bai Phule, and the third is Savitri Bai Phule and I. And wish to introduce her in three parts. First would be her childhood and education. Then next, her journey as a teacher and difficulties faced. And the last, her contribution to the society. Savitribai Phule was born in Naigan village in Satara district in Maharashtra on 3rd Jan 1831. She got married at 9 years of age with Mahatma Phule, who was 13. Mahatma Phule played great role in educating her as he thought education is the only solution for many problems faced by Shudras and women. Guided by this thought, he set a lifelong agenda for educating Shudras, Atishudra, and women who were being exploited and subjugated by keeping them deprived of education. To make them educated, he started a school, but no one, especially the upper caste teachers, were ready to teach them. So ultimately, he thought his wife Savitri Bai Phule and trained her as a teacher. After completing her studies, Savitribai Phule opened her first school in Bidewada at Pune for girls on 1st January 1848, and she was the youngest female school teacher of modern India at the age of 17 years. After starting the first school in 1848, Jyotirao started a school for the Mahars and monks. Savitribai Phule, again, she was the first teacher for these type of students. The Brahmins who were orthodox were very much disturbed by this act. They met father of Jyotirao, Govindarao, and convinced him to stop his son and daughter-in-law for such activity of educating the Shudras, Atishudras, and the females, as it was considered as dharma. It is against the will of the Hindu Dharma Shastras. After getting convinced by this, Govindarao, to the extent he told his son that he would expel him from the house if he did not stop this activity. But his son, Jyotirao, didn't stop his activity. Then he left his home and tried to move apart from that village. Then, after a while, he and his wife was given shelter by a friend Usman Sheikh and his sister Fatima Sheikh, who also gave Pule couple place in their premises to start their school. Savitribai Pule and Fatima Sheikh were threatened by the locals and were also harassed and humiliated socially. Brahmin tortured them in every way, but still Savitribai Pule continued her work. Both her husband and wife supported each other and continued to work for the society. People used to stone her, threw garbage, cow dung, used to curse throughout her way to school. Though nothing could stop her, she used to carry two saris while teaching children and put dirty sari while coming back to home. With all these difficulties they faced, they didn't stop their purpose to life. And at a time when even the shadows of untouchables was considered impure, when the people were unwilling to offer water to thirsty untouchables, Savitribai Phule and Mahatma Jyotiba Phule opened the well in their house for the use of untouchables. The couple brought in lot of reforms. They educated everyone regardless of their caste or gender and opened a care center called Balhatya Pratibandhak Griha, which was against the child killing prohibition for the pregnant rape victims. Her contribution to women's education stands unparalleled. She fought for widow remarriage and sati and various other social ills which targeted women. One of the most remarkable moments in the barber strike she organized was a strike against the shaving heads of widows. Mahila Seva Mandal was formed in 1852. Savitri Bai Phule led and initiated the movement to create awareness in the women with regard to their social status and rights. With the death of her husband, she took over the presidential role in Satya Shodhak Samaj to empower the downtrodden via education and awareness. They together did many contributions to the society. They built a night school for agriculturists and laborers, orphanage home for pregnant widow, opened the well to untouchables, adapted son of Kashibai, a Brahmin's widowed child, done important work in drought and started 52 free food hostels in Maharashtra. With these, the great souls struggle to stem the rot in the society and give every human being the right to live. In this struggle, they do not give a thought to their own life. Jyoti Rao and Savitribai are the two souls in the same lineage who sacrificed their personal happiness for their social cause. With this, I want to recite one of the poem of Savitribai Phule, which she wrote on education. Be self-reliant, be industrious, work, gather wisdom and riches. All gets lost without knowledge. We become animal without wisdom. Sit idle no more. Go get education. End misery of the oppressed and forsaken. You have got a golden chance to learn. So learn and break the chains of caste. And for Savitribai Phule, education was not simply alphabetical learning, but rather an evolution of the mind itself. For Jyotirao and Savitribai, education was means to bring about a radical change in the society. It was means for the transformation of the society altogether. She started teaching in an innovative way through telling stories, short stories, reading poems, and introducing sports sessions. Savitribai Phule died a heroic death while she was trying to save person from plague. She contracted the disease and she died thereafter. Pune's, with this, I would like to stop the review on the three books that I have gathered and try to put in very short thing. But I would like you all to read all these three books. And I like to end my review with these penetrating lines. If you are an Indian woman who reads, you owe her. If you are an educational Indian woman, you owe her. If you are an Indian schoolgirl reading this chapter in English, you owe her. If I'm doing the session to you all, I owe to her. Thank you all. If you have any wish to share more things about her and journey, it would be insightful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rashmi, for that review. Can you please share the names of the books in the chat box?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And uh, I want to know, is her you were saying that there's also some poetry that she's written. So is that translated entirely? Is there any collection that you can mention?
Yes, yeah, actually, she wrote one book in Marathi, Kavya Vibhujan. That book is being translated to many of the languages, and this is the one of the poem from that book.
Okay.
I'll share even that book name.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anyone else has any comments, please feel free to ask. So this is our actually our final review. We'll have some discussion on this, and then we'll have an open we'll have some time for an open discussion. So
Saad, I have a small clarification based on what Rashmi has just presented.
sure.
Okay. So, Rashmi, during the course of her review, she actually mentioned how there's a lot of suppression or oppression where they denied education to women and Shudras, right? So, in
Yes,
fact,
yes.
yeah. So the fact remains that before the 18th, I mean, before the 19th century, in the 18th century, we have data from the, I mean, which was compiled prior to the Macaulay education system being implemented in India. So, in the book called Tree, which was actually written by I don't remember his name. It'll come. Dharampal. Yes, his name is Dharampal.
Okay.
He has actually. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, Abhinav, you can
Yes, you're audible.
please continue.
Okay. Yeah, so Dharampal has compiled a lot of data based on going and surveying the different types of students who are studying in different traditional schools in India at that point of time, prevailing at that point of time. So he has given credible evidence showing that people from all classes, people of all genders, people of all castes have also been studying. And so education was never denied to anyone. So it is only in the, I mean, like based on this that Macaulay introduced the education system, which was meant to divide the people and also unite the people at the same time. Divide the people in the sense you no longer are from the same country, like you are not people of the same nation. You're all united by the cause that you are all being educated to be part of the workforce of the British Raj. So if you go back to the national education policy, even that was why we have introduced a lot of new changes. I mean, when I say we, I mean modern day India. So coming to the context of education itself, you Rashmi also mentioned that according to Dharma, it is not correct to educate women and Shudras. But it so happens that I also have not come across any statements as such in the literature, Dharma Shastra literature, which talks about this being a problem. Because if you go back to the literature, it talks about what kind of education can be given to which kind of person, but it never says you deny education to anyone. So you see people who are extremely intellectual, in the sense they like to talk or discuss or abstract everything. They are taught some abstract concepts, abstract studies. People who are able to do things which are very physical, they are taught these physical activities. People who are interested in things related to economics, they are given economic studies. And people who are incapable of doing any of these three above activities, they are taught things which are something relevant to them based on their own professions or based on their own interests or inclinations. So to directly assume that it is against dharma, I think the author has actually not done a historical survey or a literary survey for that matter when talking about.
Yeah, I like to add a few points over here.
Yeah.
Um, well, coming to dharma, no dharma tells to do wrong to anyone, right? Any dharma
No,
you take, not just the Hindu dharma,
I'm,
any of the
yeah.
dharmas you take, no dharmas tell. Let me complete the point, okay? So when we go to the situations and read what the people exactly are doing, they tell that they know the dharma, and in the dharma it is mentioned here, so we act according to it. Few of the people will take advantage over that, and they try to misuse or misinterrupt in a way that it gives advantage to them. Yeah, I believe that no dharma tell to discriminate or either on the religion or on the race or anything as such. But even today we see many of the cases that have been works on this statement, like untouchables has to be kept so and so. We read many news, right? Daily we read news where the so and so people have been killed for so and so reason. That depends again on the religion or the race. Yeah, if I go to the author, whether that person has researched or no, the author is not blaming the dharma directly. The author is blaming those people who try to manipulate dharma for their own purpose, for their own advantage. This is what I would like to interfere from that book.
I totally agree with what you said. So what I eventually wanted to, I mean, share as an inference was that there are people for the sake of selfish interests, with vested interests for that matter, not necessarily selfish, they have misinterpreted what has been followed in the past. So that is the problem we are facing right now. We really don't know what is this concept of untouchability, and suddenly it got introduced into the society, and we see a lot of unnecessary problems emanating from that specific concept. But yeah, I totally agree with what
Yeah,
Rashmi said.
yes. Even I agree what you told right now.
Yeah, this also, a bit of what you were saying about, I think this is an important thing to consider, uh, because when we're speaking about education, the concept of colonialism cannot be entirely, divorced from it. I mean, we have to think about it in those terms as well. The relationship between education and colonialism that has been there, because I mean, the very idea of education in the context of colonialism was that everything else that existed before it was, by definition, primitive, or you know, backward, and not proper education as such. Therefore, we have come to educate you. We have come, I mean, we've brought these tools of Western civilization to bring you enlightenment. That kind of discourse uh, actually uh, undermines, or doesn't give, I mean, doesn't appreciate the value of, you know, uh, the traditions of education that existed in society before this happened. So I think that's an important angle to keep in mind as well. I mean, because education is also linked to progress, right? And I mean, the whole colonial project was, I mean, based on the presumption that we are a civilization who are more evolved or more progressed, and these are people who are primitive and who are backward, and we've come to give them progress. Uh, Again, that cannot entirely be divorced from that colonial context. I mean, I hope my point is clear.
Yeah, very clear, very clear.